If exercise is getting harder as you get older, your heart is the first thing you'd blame. Your heart is probably the part that's holding up the best. Here's what's actually happening. Your body is slowly losing its ability to get oxygen where it's needed, and almost nobody talks about the part that's actually failing. The same hill, the same walk, the same flight of stairs that used to be nothing, it starts feeling like work, and every year it feels like a little more work. Most people just decide that it's part of getting older, but it isn't. Stick with me, because this is fixable and faster than you might think. Now, I should probably explain why I care so much about this. I'm not a doctor or a biologist. The truth is I'm an engineer, really a reluctant engineer. I've been trying to get out of engineering for 25 years, but when my own health started failing and nobody could give me answers, I was forced into doing what engineers do. I geeked out on the science. I dealt with Lyme disease, cancer, and autoimmune problems. At first, I trusted the medical system. When I couldn't get the help I needed, I had to go deeper myself. And for years, I couldn't recover from anything. When I finally figured out what was going on, it wasn't what any of the tests were looking at. So let's start with the heart, because that's the one everyone blames. Here's the thing about your heart. It's a muscle, and muscles respond to demand. You use it, it stays strong. That's true at 30, and it's still true at 70. So your heart does lose some capacity as you age, but it's trainable, and it keeps getting trained every single day just by keeping you alive. Here's how we know it's not the main problem. You've probably heard of VO2 max. V is for volume and O2 is oxygen. The most oxygen your body can actually use when you push it. That's what VO2 max is. Now that metric's important because it measures everything. How much oxygen your heart can push, how much oxygen gets out of your bloodstream into your cells, how well your cells use that oxygen to make energy. From your 20s to your 70s, that number drops by about 45%. Yeah, nearly in half. But your heart's output only drops about 30%. So your loss of oxygen is not just caused by reduced cardiac output. Something downstream of the heart is causing the rest. The pump is still working. The delivery past the pump is where it falls apart. And that's the part nobody's testing. Let's follow the oxygen for a second. Your heart pushes oxygen-rich blood out to your arteries. Those branch into smaller and smaller vessels. Eventually, the blood reaches your capillaries, these tiny vessels where the oxygen finally leaves the blood and enters the tissue. That last handoff is the whole game, and it runs on a part of you that's more fragile than your heart. It's called the endothelium. The endothelium are this thin lining on the inside of every blood vessel you have. And it's not just a passive pipe, it's an active tissue that senses what your body needs and controls where blood goes. When you start up that hill, your leg muscles suddenly demand more oxygen. Fast. That endothelium senses that demand, it releases a gas called nitric oxide, and that nitric oxide tells the vessels to relax and open wide. That's called vasodilation. The vessels widen, blood flows in, and oxygen reaches the muscles right when it's needed. In a younger body, that happens instantly, like on command. But here's the difference between the endothelium and the heart. Your heart is thick, tough muscle that gets exercised constantly. The endothelium is one cell thick. It's delicate, and it takes the brunt of everything that wears you down with age. Oxidative stress, inflammation, high blood sugar, the slow damage of years. So while your heart is holding up, that fragile lining gets slower to respond. It makes less nitric oxide, and the vessels can't open up the way they used to. So when the demand spikes and the delivery doesn't rise to meet it, that's the first place you feel the wall coming on up the hill. And it's exactly why a clean heart checkup doesn't explain why exercise got harder. They checked the pump, nobody checked the lining. Now it gets deeper because it's not just the vessels slower to open. You actually have fewer of them than you used to. Consider this, you have nearly 60,000 miles of blood vessels in your body, enough to go around the planet twice and then some. I mean, I find that pretty mind-melting. Those capillaries are how oxygen gets close enough to your cells to actually reach them. And then starting in midlife, if you're not regularly demanding a lot out of them, your body stops maintaining all of them. This network thins out. Why waste energy keeping something up that you're not using? They call it capillary rarefaction. I mean, think of capillary rarefaction as making the capillaries rarer. Fewer capillaries means some of your muscle cells are now sitting further from the nearest oxygen supply. And oxygen can only diffuse so far. So the blood shows up carrying plenty of oxygen. It just can't cross that extra distance to the cells that are stranded. Now here's the good part, and it's a big one. Both of these things can be reversed. The endothelium can heal, and the capillary network can rebuild noticeably in 8 to 10 weeks. 8 weeks, I think that speaks to the wonder of the human body. You're not stuck with the system you've got. That's worth sitting with for a second. You're not predestined here. You can rebuild this. And here's a reason oxygen matters this much in the first place. Think of oxygen as an energy multiplier. When your cells have plenty of it, they can make about 20 times more energy from the same fuel than when they're running low. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between climbing the stairs and feeling nothing or climbing the stairs and reaching for the handrail. So when delivery falls behind, your muscle cells aren't just a little short, they drop towards that low oxygen setting where everything costs more and produces less. And here's what makes the whole thing sneaky. None of this shows up when you're sitting still. At rest, your demand is low, and even a declining system can easily keep up. You could put that pulse oximeter on your finger, this little clip here, and it reads 98%. It looks perfect, but that only tells you the blood in your fingertip is loaded with oxygen. It says nothing about whether your muscle deep in your leg can get enough the moment you ask for more. What you've quietly lost isn't function you can feel day to day, it's the reserve, the headroom your body used to have when it suddenly had demand spikes. The hill, that walk you took, the third set, that's the only time the gap shows up. So you feel completely normal all day, hit one moment of real effort, and the floor drops out. And because the tests are almost always done at rest, they come back clean too. Everybody measured you sitting still. The problem only lives in the effort. And let me ask you something you can check for yourself. Think about the last time you really pushed. A long day of yard work, carrying the groceries up a flight of stairs, etc. How long did it take you to feel recovered? I'm betting a lot longer than it used to. That's your reserve, or what's left of it. Now here's where it turns into a trap, because these pieces don't just add up, they feed each other. Exercise starts feeling harder, so you naturally do a little less of it, but demand is the exact signal that keeps the endothelium healthy and the capillaries maintained. So doing less means less demand. Less demand means the lining gets weaker and more of those vessels disappear, which means delivery gets worse, which makes exercise feel even harder, which means you do even less. Round and round it goes. It's a downward spiral. Your body reads, "We're not demanding much anymore," and quietly dismantles the machinery you've stopped using. And I'm telling you this because I've lived inside that loop. The hardest part isn't that it's happening, it's that it's invisible until you're already deep in it. Now here's the good news. The spiral runs in both directions. Every single thing that spins it down can be flipped to spin it back up. So what do you actually do about it? I'm not going to hand you 15 hacks because there's one lever that does most of the work, and it's the least exotic thing on the internet. You demand more of the system on purpose. Easy aerobic movement, the kind where you can still hold a conversation, plus lifting something heavy a couple times a week. Here's why that one lever is so powerful. When you make your muscles work, blood flows through them and it surges. And that surge of blood drags across the endothelium, a physical force that's one of the strongest signals to release nitric oxide and rebuild your vessel lining. You're not just using the delivery system, you're repairing the fragile parts of it. Do it enough and your body builds new capillaries, shorter distance for the oxygen to travel, more delivery, and more reserve. And here's the part that closed the loop from where we started. Remember, your heart is a muscle too. So when you train this way to rescue your fragile endothelium, the heart comes along for the ride. It gets stronger at the same time, almost for free. You don't fix the pump and the delivery separately. They go after the same fragile part, the lining, and the durable part, and strengthen them right alongside each other. Now, here's how you find out which way your spiral's spinning. No lab, no doctor. Pick a hill or a set of stairs you know well. Notice honestly how you feel today. Then do the work for 8 weeks, the movement, the lifting, then go back to that same hill. Those vessels can rebuild in about 8 to 10 weeks. This isn't a someday promise. This is a this season promise. When that hill starts to feel easier, you know you didn't imagine it. You're not just having a good day. You actually spun that aging spiral in reverse. That's the machinery coming back, and you'll feel it long before the test ever could catch it. Now, I'm not going to tell you that exercise alone got me over my health conditions. It goes a bit deeper than that. Now, check out this next video. Lost 1% of your oxygen ability every year past 25. Here's the fix. In the video, I go over exactly what happens in your body that's causing that loss of oxygen utilization, and the one powerful tool that can help you increase the effectiveness of your exercise while reducing the amount of exercise you need to do. It's really quite amazing, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't believe it myself until I tried it, so go check it out. And while that's loading, here's the whole thing in one breath. Your heart isn't the weak link. It's a trainable muscle that's mostly keeps up. The fragile part is the lining of your vessels, and that's what falls behind first. Fewer opening vessels, less delivery, shrinking reserve, and you only notice it under real effort. And then the downward spiral, it feels harder, you move less, the system weakens, it still feels harder. All right, that's it. So go check out the next one. I think you're really gonna enjoy it. See you there.